Hi, my name is Claire Wong. I'm Joint Artistic Director of Checkpoint Theatre, and I am also the Director of The Heart Comes to Mind.
Hi, my name is Oon Shu An. I'm an actor and I'll be playing Lynn in The Heart Comes to Mind.
Hi, my name is Shah Tahir. I'm composer, sound designer, and musician for the show.
Hi, my name is Ryan Sim. I'm a cellist, and I'm the cellist and co-composer of The Heart Comes to Mind.
So Shah, you remember, right? I invited you to Checkpoint, and then I said, I want you to work with me on this play. And it's hopefully a way that is different from how you and I normally work when you design a theatre production.
I don't really compose music like a full-length music, because usually our production it's really like a transition and sound effects and music like that. So, but in this case, you wanted really a scored piece, like the music being like a character in the play, not just the background. We talked about it, and then I think we kind of trying to find that balance, because this is not your usual music, especially for play. If you're writing a song for an album, it's quite clear. You have a structure, you have a intro, verse, but this is now you're trying to make music be part of the vocal, the words, basically the words. So you're trying not to go beyond, be too big, and also not too small. So that fine balance is actually quite tricky.
So after we talked, you and I scheduled a series of design workshops involving the cast and the playwright, as well as the two of you, in order to work out how we would make this, how we would create this, because we are both trying to innovate our approach. And then we came together and we came with ideas.
We had a lot of discussion and also sat for the read and trying to understand this whole play, what it is about. And then we decided that each, the father and the daughter, should have a sound or an instrument or some sort that represents these two characters. So I think that's why she asked me what other instrument you think you want to bring along. So I said the cello. And then because the cello for me is a very wide range emotional instrument. It can be very subtle and very gentle, and also it can suddenly jump out front and become very aggressive. So I think, and I love the cello. After listening to all the fancy Yo-Yo Ma, is it? And Sheku, this British cellist is like, wow, it's like a magical instrument, this cello.
I remember you describing the cello as something that's very almost very, for you, like the human voice.
Yeah, like a voice.
And of course,
yeah.
it really fit well in terms of what I was reaching for, because I'm interested in working with the cast, with their vocal instrument in a very different way, possibly, so that it becomes a performance of their vocal instrument with the non-vocal instruments, creating and unpacking the layers within the script and within these characters. So there is, I guess the idea is that it's a very intimate play. We are really looking at these characters quite close up in their home and then inside their heads. So I think the idea is, how do we have a certain bass instrument and range of sounds, but within that, of course, make it as expressive as possible.
Trying to limit and explore as much as we can with that instrument, like the cello, how the cello can play in the different range of the instrument to create emotion and things like that.
I think for me, like, the sound brings out a different dimension of thought and feeling. I think, like, for example, like if I'm logically thinking about something else, like the sound brings out something in the body or in like the back of my mind or like in maybe like a part of like my hand that is like tingling, and the sound kind of like almost represents that, and that helps me to approach the text differently, respond to it differently. And I think what Claire keeps talking about is, okay, imagine the sound to be a part of you. So that took me a while to understand at first, because I'm like, okay, but I'm listening to it and I'm responding to it, so it's a part of me, what? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, isn't it already? Like, because my brain and like all the thought is like going this way, but actually it's not, because it's also the sense of like your body creating that sound, and or the mind creating that sound, and the sound like in between a word like this, la 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 la, and you know, as in like you created that sound in that path, but there's also the sense of the sound being part of it, being over it, being under it, and just being completely separate from where you are.
I think it's about accessing your emotional and psychological choices in a different way, right? Because I suppose as an actor, one develops certain tools to access your instrument. And I'm been trying through this process of opening up other access points. We're used to putting our hands in certain pockets, but there are a lot of other pockets that you've not used, and it's very exciting for me to see how you've sort of trusted the process. It's so visceral and so obvious when you're suddenly finding a new meaning in the text and finding a new side to Lynn's character.
And I think like I come in with an idea of what Lynn is, and then hearing a piece that Uncle Shah or Ryan bring in, and it can be so totally different from what I thought the monologue was gonna be, but then it brings out a different shade or color to what the words are. The hinges creaking on the bathroom door. The same air. A half-drunk cup of tea. Tapping and clacking on the keyboard. Body slumped across the sofa. The other day, from the window of our lab, I saw workers on top of the building across from ours. They were mixing cement, laying ground guides, applying, patching. I watched for quite a while. Heroes in hard hats. There was something comforting. How they committed to the repetition. Churning and pouring, leveling and curing, setting, solidifying, finishing, hardening. That is all it has been lately. Just grant application and grant application, progress reports and progress reports, bench work followed by more bench work, requisition forms and emails and preliminary poster presentations and lab meetings on Friday evenings and 4 more hours extracting and amplifying DNA, running gels, meeting assigned mentees, another rejected grant application, another Friday evening meeting, another month, another year, fixed, finished, hardened. So I broke. The cycle stopped. The spinning centrifuges stopped. Myself. The hinges creaking on the bathroom door. The same air. A half-drunk cup of tea. Tapping and clacking on the keyboard. A body slumped across the sofa. The other day, from the window of our lab, I saw workers on top of the building across from ours. They were mixing cement, laying ground guides, applying, patching. I watched for quite a while. Heroes in hard hats. There was something comforting how they committed to the repetition, churning and pouring, leveling and curing, setting, solidifying, finishing, hardening. That is all it has been lately. Grant application and grant application, progress reports and progress reports, bench work and more bench work, requisition forms and emails and preliminary poster presentations. And lab meetings on Friday evenings in 4 more hours, extracting and amplifying DNA, running gels, meeting assigned mentees, another rejected grant application, another Friday evening, meeting, another month, another year, fixed, finished, hardened. So I broke. The cycle stopped. The spinning, centrifuges stopped. Myself. I think for me, it has been a very freeing experience. I feel like I can respond to very visceral things like the music and like how my body feels, and it's and like to just kind of focus on those instead of just like thinking about it and going with it. I mean, the whole like your body is your instrument kind of thing, it has taken on a new meaning for me in this process. For example, like in the earlier piece, right? The direction was to focus on my hands. Like, what does it feel for me to be sending the words out through my hands? And then the piece was sort of like quite quick and quite light in a way. And so like somehow like that synced. So that was my connecting point for those two things. And from there, it's like, okay, where do we go?
2 days ago.
Sleeves first. Never fold. Always use a sleeve board. Careful around the sleeve placket. Cuff. Careful around the cuff buttons.
It's a little bit like, you know, how actors, we give you a costume, right? And your body feels different when you're wearing a big heavy overcoat versus a very light t-shirt. And it's sort of going with that and allowing your actor's instrument to be triggered or to be inspired through these sort of stimuli.
Yes.
And it opens up psychological choices, memories, meaning that you may not have thought of when you then use that to unpack the words. So I think it's a very similar kind of approach, except I'm asking you to use your voice, which is something I've always been interested in for a long time. The possibilities of the human voice and as a vocal instrument.
Why does that interest you?
Because our voice is the thing that is so connected to both our physical and non-physical selves. Because, you know, in my training, it's like start with the breath, and it's so human. If you don't breathe, you don't live. You know, and the breath then comes out on the voice, and breath also is very connected to thought and emotion, and we learn to mask what we feel through the voice. You can always hear when somebody's voice is open and somebody's voice is constricted. So it really is an instrument that one can choose to be much more aware of in how we are, and we use the voice to connect, to communicate, to access other people and to express who we are, what we are.
And I guess like for us, like in everyday life, you kind of get used to using a certain voice and you kind of settle into the area. And even as actors, like even as an actor, like you can fall within like a range of things.
Habits.
Like, of habits, yeah.
For me is really trying to find out that balance. I think trying to understand the emotional of the text, the meaning of the text, and trying to find a music that is complementing, but also not just being a background, something that you can actually notice, really hear. You know, there are a lot of music that is just a background. You know, a lot of stuff like maybe scoring theatre for music for theatre or movies is just in the back. You're not supposed to notice it, right? It's like that's the point. You're not supposed to notice it. But I think this time, I think we're trying to bring it to the foreground. We're trying to really let the listener hear the text and also hear the musical text. Both trying to say the same thing sometimes, or sometimes fight and contradict.
I'm asking you to come in with your own interpretation of the text sonically, and then we devising on the floor, you know, how these sonic elements come together or become bigger than what the individual components can be.
I think it's interesting also because I feel like in a way we are acting together, and in a way we are also sort of composing
together. Maybe the better word is
together, right?
composing.
Yeah, so I guess it's slightly, I mean, it's interesting in how much we are involved in each other's process. Because I do think that the nature of the work is collaborative already, but I think the extent to which you collaborate is, like, it varies. And I feel like this one is quite, it's quite meshed together, right? Like, for every time you come in with a different score for a certain monologue, it makes me see it differently. And then when I do it differently, I feel like maybe that also affects like what you feel like you want to do with the music. So there's a lot of back and forth that happens in that process before we even reach like a final piece. Yeah, so I think that is quite special. Yeah.
It's a completely new process for me. I mean, I'm used to going to, performances where the notes are all written already, the music is all arranged. But in this production, I get to be part of the creative process, and so we have to go through the text and then come up with something that, like what Uncle Shah said, it either complements or has to sometimes conflict, and then in the process added expression, I think, too.
We're always so excited when Ryan comes in with his cello, you know, it's so beautiful and the sound just lifts everything up and opens up. You know, almost I think we breathe differently when Ryan and his cello is in the room, right?
Writing time is made up of other kinds of time. Time for switching the laptop on. Time for thinking, reading time, research time.
I think it's really trying to go into the mind. I think that's really, in a way, difficult in a sense. You're trying to find that balance. For me, it's about the balance, you know, whether it's the tempo, the choices of instruments, the content of the music. Is it too much this, too much that? So I think the balance is important, so that because we have this voice in our head, and I think we are trying to put sound music to this voice. The music as another tool, we can help give depth and dimension. I say dimension is the word.
Yeah, dimension is a really good word, because I think that's what is so interesting about this play. It's not necessarily like plot driven and then this happened and then what happened next, right? It really is dwelling with these characters, and you get to know these people, and it really also gives you time to reflect, to respond, and to listen to yourself. We talked about in the workshops how this piece is also about the fabric of time, because they're both at different points in their lives. You know, he's retired, he's coming to the autumn of his life, and Lynn is kind of midlife. You know, she's looking back, what have I done with my life? What shall I do? Where am I going? What does it all mean? Yeah. And it's a question that everybody understands and also wrestles with. I hope that we are opening up spaces for the audience to meet these people, to get to know them, to experience their thoughts and reflections about life, about their relationship with each other, what it means to be parent and child, what it means, who are you in relation to yourself.
And very often, you will throw your pants on her pillow and it smelled of pee.
That's gross and untrue.
That's what Mum told me.
You can check. My pants do not smell of pee.
I am not going to verify that. When you talk about like it's an exploration of grief as well, right?
Yes. The very present absent mother.
Yeah, and it's like when you lose someone, like life still goes on, but now there's a huge gaping hole, and like how do you really deal with that in the mundane everyday life? And I think that this play explores that really beautifully, because you're not necessarily gonna have like the big cry, or you're not gonna have like the big breakdown or all of that, but the grief is not any less real or any less painful or any less heavy, right? And I think that this kind of goes into giving the space for the mundane to hold that grief. Yeah. Am I disconcerted? Should I be disconcerted that this disconcertingly real sunset does not disconcert me? She always left the lights on. 17 and sweaty, sneaking in after a marathon dance revolution session at Sydney. Asleep on the couch, heaving, snoring, skin draped over bones.
The poetry and the lyricism in the text is a big inspiration for me in involving my maestros here. So the monologues are written with such incredible poetry and imagery. And then we have the dialogues, which are so functional, Eaten already, bring in the laundry. Like communication is just so locked down in a certain form, and it does make me question, like, why do we do that? Why are we not letting these rich inner thoughts? Why don't we share them more? And I guess the part of the design of the piece is to look at this, and to elevate and to allow us to find the depth and range in the poetry.
I think this play challenges my idea of what poetry is, but I feel like this adds so much poetry to like mundane things, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's so beautiful, and it just makes you go like, actually, we're all a little bit poetic. You know what I mean? But we don't really have the space maybe in everyday lives to kind of let that come out. But like the way that you're approaching it and the way that we're doing this, it grounds it in such reality that it's like, actually our everyday lives is quite poetic.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say, It was very, very important to me that Peter and Lynn are three-dimensional. They are real. They are so authentic and recognizable. And we do the legwork. So the process has been about, okay, where do they live? What's the routine? Who cooks? Who doesn't cook? And it's grounded in reality, but within the ordinary mundaneness of life, there is the poetry, and I, at the same time, I'm reaching for a very beautiful and painfully beautiful emotional expression of these moments in life that perhaps we don't we don't recognize or we don't value enough,